Welcome to the Grit, Grow, Rise podcast. I am so excited to introduce Danielle on our show today. As a life coach and hypnotherapist, she empowers people to break free from self-doubt and create lasting change. Danielle's holistic approach to healing through Evolvement Coaching helps clients transform their lives and live with purpose. I'm so excited to have you here today, Danielle. Before we jump in, I wanted to look at what is your overall journey of self-discovery? Do you want to tell me about your process of self-discovery? I know recently you just made a pretty big life change. I'd love to hear more about that and what inspired you to pivot into this direction.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Tiffany, for having me. I'm super excited. Goodness, this journey has been amazing and terrible and terrifying and wonderful and fabulous all at the same time. Best way I could put it. So it started really in 2021. I was married at the time. Nothing was really wrong yet. I mean, actually, no, there was a lot wrong, but not to the point where it got really, really terrible. But I was kind of asking myself, like, okay, like, what's my purpose? What is the point of just existence in general? I felt like every day was like, okay, check the box, go to sleep, wake up, rinse and repeat. And I felt like I was just sleepwalking through life, really. And, every day was kind of just like, like, okay, whatever. And this is the funniest part, which really propelled me down this whole spiritual path. So randomly one night I'm watching the show Dexter and, or Dexter New Blood, the new one that came out, because I love that stuff. And I walk away, it's a commercial, and I hear this background, music for this documentary. And I'm like, oh, that's got a catchy, beat or rhythm or whatever. And I'm like, I wonder, who this artist is. So I did Shazam to see who the artist was. And I find the artist. I'm like, Lil Peep. I'm like, who in the heck is this? I've never heard of this person. It's not even the kind of music I've ever listened to before, nothing like that. And anyways, so I started Googling and Wikipedia reading and all that stuff to learn about him. And I was just fascinated by him. Very dark music, but I resonated with it at the time because things were just really not going well. And, he had his own kind of journey of his own kind of self-discovery. And he did an interview, and I'll never forget this day when I was watching it. I was sitting actually in my hot tub watching it on my phone. The interviewee or the interviewer said to him, "What do you think happens when you die?" And he goes, I don't know. You could just wake up. He goes, I do know one thing. You can't kill energy. Energy doesn't die. And that phrase just like blew my mind hearing that. And it's not like I haven't heard some level or some variation of that before, but hearing that, I was like, okay, I wonder what that means. So I went down the rabbit hole and I came across quantum physics, which was just amazing. And that just led me down so many more rabbit holes. And anyways, so that I'm discovering, I'm learning about, I'm like, why am I kind of borderline obsessed with this person? And it wasn't until a while later that I realized, like, oh, he's kind of a mirror of me, or I'm a mirror of him, or whatever, because of this kind of silent struggle, wearing your heart on your sleeve, kind of smiling through the day, but really just having a lot of, pain inside. And as I was going down this, quantum physics path, it was about, let's see, was it 8 months later, one of my worst fears actually happened and came true. I don't have my own kids, so I had my little chihuahua named Pepino. He was my baby. And I'm not going to cry because, oh God, I miss him. Anyways, he very tragically passed away in 8 minutes, and I was not expecting it. It was traumatizing. It was horrible. It set me down like just a dark, dark spiral. I'm like, what's the point like of existence? I don't care. I don't want to be here anymore. It was bad. He was like my rock through God, so many crazy life challenges and things like that.
Mhm.
Anyways, I was having a really low day. I was on the way to work at the time, I was working in corporate America. And I'm like, okay, I need to watch like a TED talk or something on quantum physics. I need something to help kind of snap me out of this mood I'm in. So I just Google it. I click on this woman. Her name's Suzanne Adams, and I started watching her TED talk, and she's so bubbly and vibrant. And like I'm like, oh, that's how I used to feel. I'm watching her. I'm kind of hating her and loving her at the same time because I'm seeing how she's so, just vivacious and happy and whatever. And anyways, so I really liked what she had to say. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if she has any books. So I go on Amazon, find her book or Audible actually, and start listening to it. Within the first probably 2 minutes, it opens with a story about her precious dog dying. My jaw dropped to the ground. I'm like, are
Mm.
you kidding me? Right. And then this is when the synchronicities happen. They just started blowing up in my face, and it was just one thing after another. She talks about Reiki in the book, and I'm like, what's that? What is energy healing? What's all this stuff about? I've heard of these things, but never really dove into them deeply. Anyway, so I'm like, okay, I need to do a little solo trip. I was doing a lot of solo trips at the time, just me, myself, going up to Strawberry, Arizona, getting some, kind of spiritual time with myself and, working on some self-love. And I said, okay, I'm gonna see if someone up there does Reiki. I've never done it. I'm gonna go in open-minded and just run with it. So I meet a wonderful woman. Long story short, it was the most beautiful, emotional, healing experience like I've ever had. And I'm like, oh gosh, I wish I could put this in a jar and just take it with me and take it back to, the valley. And so I said, okay, well, let me see if there's someone, local who does something similar. Of course, there's, 10,000 people. So I found a local person who not only did energy healing, but she also did life coaching, specifically NLP life coaching. And she helped me through a lot, really opened my eyes to a lot of things. I ended up getting divorced, which was something that should have probably happened many, many years before, but that's okay. We're all on a journey. As we were kind of going through, my journey and working through a lot of my challenges, she's like, you should get trained in, NLP. I'm like, what? What's that? Right. And she's explaining it, and I'm just fascinated by it. I've always been just so interested in how the brain works and why we do what we do and why we think what we think. So, anyways, long story short, I get trained in that. I got trained in timeline therapy, Reiki, crystal healing, hypnotherapy, all the modalities that really helped me heal. And I said, okay, I'm going to get trained in them. I want to help people feel that emotional liberation that I felt, because for the longest time, I just felt so blah. Life was just dull. And I was still working, of course, full time in the commercial banking industry. And it was really hard. It's really hard when you're trying to kind of grow something you're very passionate about and work full time and try to, just manage life in general. So it ended up coming down to me getting really sick in January of this year, and my boss saying, I think you should take a leave of absence. So I did for a long time. I definitely procrastinated, really taking the step and leap into what I wanted to do, which is do this full time. And it wasn't until a couple months ago where I said, I'm quitting. I'm quitting it. I'm going all in. I don't have another job. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do it. And the best decision I've ever made in my entire life. So that's my short, long version, Tiffany, of that story. But I'm happy to answer any questions or clarify anything for you about that.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. And I'm also so sorry for the loss of your dog. And also at the
Thank you.
same time, what a beautiful synchronicity, not only of you reading Suzanne's book and her going through something similar. What's crazy is you and I connected, and you were the first person I reached back out to about being on the podcast because I saw that you were certified in NLP and hypnotherapy and timeline therapy, which was a part of my journey as well back in 2020. And then in 2021, I came across Suzanne Adams as well. And
Stop.
synchronicity that I didn't know until this call,
Oh my
that you
goodness.
had also resonated with her. And I feel like that's probably because you and I are supposed to be on a Tedx stage at some point as well. And such a powerful story from what I've heard already. I am so excited to hear more about it. And I feel like this is going to be a stepping stone to you getting onto stage. I feel like when we go through the dark times in our life, when people are intentional about healing and not allowing their what they call their darkness to keep them stuck and held back, and they use that as a way to move forward, then you can turn it into something beautiful. That goes along with the spiritual alchemy. And I love how you found a way to alchemize what you've been through, and now you're stepping into a place where you're empowering others to do the same. I wanted to Also, have you explained, so on your application and then also on your Instagram, I saw you say something about telling people to stop sleepwalking through life. I love how you said that. And then also having the choice to choose. So, will you elaborate more on that?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, sleepwalking. So I kind of look at it, as though like you're there, but you're not really there. You're not really present, you're not really grounded. It's just like everything's a checklist. Like, okay, did I get through this today? Yes or no? And like that was defining kind of every day for me. Even the things that I didn't want to do, I was like, okay, can I just like check this off the list so that I can actually go and do what I want to do now? It just got very monotonous and I felt just stuck. Like stuck is probably the best word I could pick. And just not really pursuing things out of a lot of fear. I had just an avalanche of fear and limiting beliefs that kept me from, taking action and taking steps. But it wasn't until, kind of tragedy struck that it kind of, I call them like bitch slaps from the universe, like slap me in the face, like, hey, wake up. There's something here to see and you're not paying attention yet. So here you go. Here's another kind of a surprise thing for you to happen or thing to happen to you. So, having the choice to choose. So I think what we sometimes forget is that everything in life we can look at and remember that we have the opportunity to choose a different path. But what happens is we get stuck with things like limiting beliefs, fears, negative, unresolved emotions. And then we see things through like tunnel vision, right? Just this one track. There's only one track to get from A to B. And your mind isn't able to expand and open beyond that. So you can actually see like, yes, your goal can still be B, but there's many different ways of getting there. And until you kind of get clear is kind of how I phrase it, you don't see those things. You're unable to see those things because you're just so stuck in kind of grind mode. You just go, go, go. Okay, check the box next day. And it becomes repetitive. And, for some people, that works well for them and that's perfectly fine for their journey. But when you realize like I have the choice to choose and I can change anything about my life right now. I could have chosen to, for example, get divorced, quit my job, sell my house, but there were, just a mountain of limiting beliefs that prevented me from doing that. And then once I realized, well, actually, you can do this. And it wasn't until I got clear on a lot of things and really cleared out a lot of the, spiritual and emotional baggage that made me realize like there are paths, but I was so afraid to even go there. I was so afraid to even look down, another road because it was a road I didn't know. And fear of the unknown was one of the biggest things that paralyzes me or paralyzed me, I should say.
Wow, I love how you brought that up as well because I feel like touching back onto what you said about people feeling stuck and not realizing that they have a choice to take control of their life. It's also that like having that faith to jump into the void, I feel like is what is holding so many people back because they're so used to being comfortable in their pain. It's like this comfort zone that's not even really comfortable. And then when you realize you take that step of faith or that leap of faith into the unknown, and then it's like the map starts to unfold like step by step. And going from being in a corporate setting to launching into a coaching business sounds like it was this leap of faith for you or like this launch into this unknown and void. And touching back on what Suzanne was saying too, like in one of her messages or one of her lives, she talked about the alignment arrows. And it's like, did you have this moment in your life where you felt so out of alignment? Because I feel like sometimes when we're feeling stuck, it's like something is misaligned. And then what are some spiritual practices? I know you shared with me like the Reiki, and I believe you said you do crystal healing and and energy healing on yourself. I would love to hear how those spiritual practices each day help you to alchemize when you're feeling stuck or maybe when you're getting these limiting beliefs that you're becoming aware of, or in the past you've had limiting beliefs come up, or with clients as they're saying yes to themselves, they're realizing, okay, I'm out of alignment in my life. I was feeling stuck. I know I have the power to move forward. What do you use for yourself and others to bridge that gap, to go from this like comfort zone into launching into the unknown and taking step toward manifesting this new reality that feels more in alignment?
Yeah, I love that. It's so funny that you said misaligned because I have perfectly misaligned tattoo on my collarbone. Laughing again because just everything you're saying. And then you said TED Talk stage, and I'm like, how did she know? How did you know, Tiffany? How do you know these things? This is crazy. I know, and I love it. I love that the universe brings, like-minded folks together, because there's so much to learn from each other, and we have to remember that. But yeah, so to answer your question, I love blending kind of a multitude of things. I love taking different modalities and bringing them together to kind of create something new. So for example, well, she's still my client. She's wonderful. She's feeling very stuck herself, right? And I combined Reiki and timeline therapy kind of together, which is really cool. So with Reiki, you're working on energy blockages, of course, right, that are throughout the body. And it's very obvious because it aligns and kind of matches up with, physical symptoms, emotional symptoms. And a lot of folks that I work with have a lot of stuckness, in that solar plexus region, and that's your sense of, I'm empowered, right? Along with the sacral chakra as well, right? So, feeling empowered or having that joy, that motivation to kind of take the steps, take the leaps. I ended up with an ulcer. Ironically, I forgot about this too in 2021, which is literally right in the solar plexus region. So your body will start to kind of hint at you in different ways. So not just physically, but emotionally. So kind of working together to blend, those two modalities where you're releasing negative emotions and simultaneously also working on things on the energetic field and the energetic plane, I found to be extremely helpful. I do that to myself as well. It's definitely not as fun when you're doing crystal healing or Reiki on yourself than it is if you're getting it done. So I trade with my friend because it's just so much nicer. It's like trying to give yourself a massage. Like, that's not fun. But, being able to do that, and I love using crystal grids. I got very, very into that. I was making grids for, my neighbors, my friends. I think I have index cards of each and every one, what it was for, what the crystals were for, why I placed them where I placed them. And I can't think of one that hasn't actually manifested in one way or another. Specifically, I actually have a crystal grid right now in my family room, and I put it together because when I was on that leave of absence, I knew I didn't want to go back to work. But I'm like, well, I need to have an income. So I kept looking for jobs that were, similar to what I was doing, which was human resource. And I cannot tell you how many times I got shot down, declined, something fell through. And I'm like, okay, this can't be like a coincidence. This is crazy. I'm not trying to be, to my own horn, but like I'm a very experienced professional and I'm like applying for jobs that are way below, like even less than what I've been doing. And why am I not getting anything? And my crystal grid was put together to help me find the perfect opportunity. So I'm looking at my grid and I'm like not mad at it, but like, I'm like, why aren't you working? And then finally the aha moment came where I'm like, you're not supposed to be doing this. Stop wasting your time looking for a job that you don't want, but you're too afraid to take the leap for. So yeah, that's just a little tidbit of that.
Okay, I'm curious, which crystals did you pick as you were looking for opportunities? Which ones were you intuitively led to? And can you tell us a little bit about their properties? For anyone else who's looking for opportunities through the process, it sounds like you got clarity that the opportunities that you were putting energy toward, like pursuing just something that was out of alignment, and how that created clarity to what you actually wanted to do. I would love to know which crystals those were and a little bit about those properties.
Sure, yeah. So the one that I was mentioning, in the center is a citrine tower. It's a beautiful tower from my good friend who she does something similar and also sells crystals. And she just gifted it to me. And it's the most beautiful, it's so clear and just amazing. And citrine, is known as, well, it's known for many things, but the stone of abundance. It's definitely associated with prosperity, joy, creativity. It's used to help you attract success, boost your confidence, just promote like a more positive outlook on life. And when it comes to the chakra system, it aligns with the solar plexus, which I was talking about, which is basically right at the kind of like apex of your ribs, like just right under, the breastbone area. And that helps also with enhancing, your personal power and manifestation power. So that's kind of sitting in the center of it. And then I have clear quartz points pointing inwards around the citrine tower. And around that, I have aventurine, which is the stone of opportunity to help bring good luck and abundance as well. It's aligned with the heart chakra, which is wonderful because it helps you kind of be kind to yourself throughout the process. It helps to promote, emotional balance, calmness, clarity. I also have pyrite on the outer layer as well, which is also known as fool's gold. And that symbolizes wealth and protection and is also used for manifesting abundance and shielding against, negative energy to help, keep any negativity away as you are working on manifesting what you desire. It also helps with mental clarity, just increasing your overall will and determination, and really forgetting you in your personal power and motivation. And it's also aligned with citrine, which is also the solar plexus. And then quartz points I have, so I have some pointing inward and then I have some pointing outward. And the difference between the quartz points is depending on what you're trying to do. So if you're trying to amplify the energy of the center crystal, you would turn the quartz points inwards so that they're pointing towards, that center crystal. And for me, having the pyrite and aventurine kind of outlining that is kind of taking their energy and then fusing that energy into the citrine in the center to help kind of, propel that into the universe. And then on the outer perimeter, I also have, I think it's clear quartz or they're citrine points, either one. I have those pointing outward. And for me, it's also just helping kind of, not just amplify from the center, but just amplify all the crystals outwards so that it could bring to me, what I'm trying to manifest. And like I said, for the longest time, I was kind of upset with my crystal grid. I'm like, why is everything falling through? Why is nothing working? But it's because it wasn't the path I was going at the time was not in alignment with what I really wanted.
Wow, that is so powerful. And I love how you explained how you can turn one's inward to amplify the properties of the crystal. And what's been coming through for me lately when I'm doing like meditation or breath work or my own sort of like Reiki healing on myself. And I'm huge in using crystals. I actually have like a bunch around me right now on my desk. And
That's great.
what I've been shown is that, like, at our heart center, we all have our own crystal, and it's like our own essence and properties that we emit. And we have this crystalline grid in our auric field, and then the earth has that as well. And there's different places on earth where our energy is activated or amplified based on our own energetic blueprint and then where the energy is on earth. And what I've been shown is how, as we're doing this collective healing and ascension, it's activating this crystalline grid and these different like crystal energies on earth and within ourselves as our DNA is like crystallizing into this like purest frequency of authenticity. And what I was being shown as you were explaining that is how it's so important for us to come together in community and connect with other people, because just like two different crystals can amplify the properties of each other or like be directed towards someone else, that can happen with humans too. And like we are these souls having a human experience. So it's like our overlay, like the soul overlay, I'm seeing it as, for example, this podcast. Like I was drawn to start interviewing people and giving them a channel to share their story. And I feel like during that process, it's like me putting my energy toward that person to help them like amplify their own light and their own story and their voice. Because our throat chakra, too, there's like something that happens energetically when we express. It's like this frequency that's emitted, just like the crystals have their own frequency. And so it's just like so exciting to see how you've interwoven all of this. And also, I'm being shown like this multidimensional approach as well by like us connecting on this podcast is going to lead to you connecting with other like crystals on a grid in a sense, and you being able to then amplify them, whether it's through like you coaching them as their coach and they're a client, or you connecting with them on other podcasts or on a Tedx stage. And it might not even be through this podcast, but just like the more that you're connecting with others and sharing your story and allowing yourself to be in the center of this grid, and by you sharing your authentic story, it's going to attract other crystals who are drawn to your energy and who amplify your energy. And I feel like also on the journey, it's like sometimes we have to go through these periods where we retreat or rest. It's almost like this cocoon phase so that we can tap into our own energy and frequency. And I'm curious, did you go through a period on your journey where you felt led to go inward and to like tap into your own energy? And also with that, what would you say your superpower is? Or like if you were to write out a note card of your, like if you were a crystal, what would you describe yourself as? Like, what's your superpower and the frequency you give off, and anything else that comes up around that?
Yeah, no, oh my gosh, your words are so kind. You have me like tearing up here. So thank you just for your kindness and your openness. And that's just amazing. I wrote down like a couple of things you said because I just loved it so much. And I love that, attracting other crystals who are drawn to your energy. I think that is just such a cool kind of metaphoric way of looking at it. I love that. But yes, I did have a cocoon period. I had a lot of cocoon periods, interestingly enough, and they started in 2022, I think it was April. I started doing these solo trips up north to Strawberry, Arizona. I remember I had gone up there, gosh, like probably 10 years prior. And I just remember it being really pretty. And I remember, I'm like, okay, it's not very city, it's not very busy. Let me just see what's up there. So I typed something in Google, like retreat or something along those lines, Strawberry, Arizona. And this cute little boutique hotel came up that has all these cute little studio, like little cottages. And I saw it, and I'm like, this is just calling me. So I started booking trips, and I was, married at the time. And I told my husband at the time, like, I'm like, I need to not be needed right now. Like, cause I was just in charge of everything and it was just draining me so much. I'm like, I need to just be with myself. And so, interestingly enough, the frequency and duration of me going up there started to increase a lot. And by 2023, I mean, I was going up like every 2 months, sometimes even every other month. And when I would go up there, a lot of it, I just did a lot of journaling. I did a lot of reflecting. I brought all my crystals with me. I had my incense. I had my chakra oracle cards. I had just really like a whole gamut of things that I would just kind of do, like fun things I enjoyed doing with myself to start kind of getting comfortable in my own skin and comfortable with being with myself. I didn't really like myself very much. Not that I did anything, wrong. I just didn't really like being in my own company. So that helped really, propel me into just like a self-love journey essentially. And it became kind of part of what I did. And then I had another really long cocoon period, which was this January through August, where I went on a leave of absence. And then it was early August, and I just, I was like, I'm done. I'm not going back. I had no plan B, nothing. And I was just terrified. But those 7 months helped me get really clear on a lot of things. That helped me clean up a lot of the, kind of remnants of what was left over after getting out of a marriage, being divorced. I changed my name. My last name is actually a name I created myself, which is another fun little story. But yeah, like superpower wise, I love it. If I was to write out my superpower, if I was a crystal, what would it be? I would say just uplifting people. I've gotten told so many times, like, oh my gosh, you're just like a ball of energy. And I feel energized around you. And you make me, you motivate me or make me feel better. And for the longest time, even hearing a compliment would make me cringe. I still fall into those habits sometimes, but I try to just say thank you and accept the compliment for what it is. But I know I've been told that so many times, and I'm definitely a problem solver kind of person. I can really help people see things that maybe they're not able to see by, asking them really thoughtful questions so that they can become empowered themselves without me having to kind of tell them, okay, here's what to do. I might have a little inkling, but to see someone be able to come to that understanding on their own is very empowering for them. So yeah, I think that would be my superpower frequency would be, empowerment and energy, just energizing.
I love that so much. It makes sense because you talked a lot about the solar plexus, and that's our power center. It sounds like you're very in touch with your power center and your intuition and using that to make aligned decisions. I want to ask, have you heard of astrocartography? And if so, have you looked up, I can't remember the place you just said that you went to. Strawberry, what was it?
Strawberry.
Strawberry. Okay. Have you looked that up with your astrocartography chart?
Okay, so fun fact, I'm Googling what astrocartography is because I
Okay.
don't know what that is. I'm seeing what it is on Google, but I did not look it up, but I would love to do that.
Yeah. Go ahead. If you want to, why don't you pull up your chart real quick? If you just type
Yeah.
in astrocartography chart. So you are familiar with astrology, right? Have you ever looked at
Yes.
your birth chart? Okay. So
Yes.
basically what it does, it takes your birth chart and puts it on the map of Earth. And with different energies on your chart in Earth, it will show you your lines, like your Venus line, where you can attract love or tap into like doing things you love, like your passions, or you can go to your North Node line to tap into your Dharma and unlocking your destiny, or like your Saturn line if you're wanting to work on building like more structure and having like a routine. Like there's different lines that you can go to with intention. It sounds like you're like me and you have been led to places on your journey. I'm so curious because I would put money on a bet that you were drawn to an area that's activated on your chart. So if you want to, you don't have to do
Oh
it
my
right now
goodness, this is
at
so
all,
cool.
but
Yeah, no, I already did it, but I
okay.
don't know what any of it means. There's lots of
That's
colors of lines, and I don't know what they mean.
yeah, that's okay.
So here's Phoenix, and there's New Mexico. Another area that just popped in my brain that I think might be part of that. And I'm
Okay.
gonna look up the coordinates for it because
Yeah.
it's kind of screaming at me right now. It's called Greens Peak.
Jupiter vibes with it being green peak. I'm seeing like money peak or summit. Did you feel like that sort of energy when you were there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it was very so this is northeast of where I live. So I am like down here.
Okay.
And then if I'm looking at this, chart here on the right side, as you can see, it's in this Apache Sitegraves National Forest area. And I'm wondering if it falls somewhere on this line here, this maybe this red line, I don't
Yeah.
know.
It
But
exactly through it, even being close to it, you can still tap into the energy. Kind of like with Reiki, it's like you can feel the energy flowing in certain directions, and there's different ley lines on.
yes.
All right. So you said it was Strawberry, Arizona, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I have your chart pulled up, and the site that I like to use, if you just Google Astro Click Travel, it will pull up this website that I'm on. And I like this one in particular because over here on the right side, it will give you a description as well.
Very
So
cool.
your Chiron line and your Saturn are really close to where you live and to Strawberry. And so with Chiron, have you heard of Chiron before?
No.
Okay, so this is the wounded healer. And if you look at the symbol here, it looks like a key. So this is a part in your chart or a part of your story in your journey in this lifetime where you have been wounded and you may have experienced some sort of trauma. And this is an area where if you do the work to transmute your wounds from your past, it can unlock a part of your destiny and your dharma and this abundance that opens up. And so also North Node is a part of stepping into your destiny. I know on the intake form you said something about like writing a book, or I know we talked about public speaking. So your Node line could be supportive if you ever wanted to travel to an area. This one goes right through the United States right here. And then
Okay.
also your Neptune line. This one's good for unlocking spiritual gifts. I find it really interesting that your Chiron line is super close to where you live. And I know that you said you were not born in Arizona, you were born in New Jersey, right? Okay,
Yes.
so what brought you to Arizona? I'm curious.
My mom and stepdad moved here when I graduated high school, and I said, I am not interested. Enjoy yourself. I went out, lived on my own, did my own thing. And then 3 years later, I spent a significant amount of time. I spent a whole month and met a bunch of people and was like, oh, I really like it. So I'm going to move here. Slash, there may have been a romantic interest as well that
That's
prompted that,
beautiful.
but we're not going to go there.
Yeah. That's awesome. And so how long have you been in the Phoenix area?
Since 2007.
Okay. So do you notice that since 2007 until now, have you had themes coming up around like your past? Like, so Chiron over here too, since it's on your MC line, this is going to be in relation to like your career or like outer aspects of your life, whereas your Saturn line is with your IC, which is more inner, like your home life and family life. And Saturn's all around like traditions and structure and responsibility. And then right next to it is your Chiron, which is in the area of your career. And so, like, this could be, it says, like, fundamental changes of your personal views regarding, like, traditional values or traditional careers and professional disappointments,
Oh my God,
tasks
my jaw's
adding to your
dropping.
security. Yeah. So tell me a little bit, like, over here on this description, some of these words, like, what's popping out at you?
Yeah, well, what you just said, what did you just say about career? Something about like where it says like traditional values lose their meaning, right? Or like your ideas of success might start to transform. So what's interesting is that line is running right through Phoenix, and I worked in downtown Phoenix, like literally in the center of the heart, so that that couldn't be more literally aligned, literally and figuratively aligned, because that was where I was working when I decided this is not for me anymore. This is not what I thought it was going to be. This is not in alignment with me, and I need to do something different. And it was me leaving that area and actually moving to their Chandler location when I finally went on a leave and then said I'm not coming back. This is just not for me. So that's just crazy. That it's literally running right through the center of Phoenix.
Yeah. And then even here too, it talks about like feeling manipulated, rebelling against all expectations in search of your own destiny. And from what you've shared with me, it definitely literally is in alignment. And then also I looked up gas peak and that was closer to your Neptune line. I'm sorry,
Greens
this is
Peak?
your Neptune line's over here, but this is
Okay.
your Uranus line or Uranus, however you say it. And that's like big change and it can feel like very abrupt. It also can be like in a magical way too, like stepping more into what feels in alignment. So it makes sense that sometimes when it felt like too much, like the wounds or the things that weren't in alignment, when that felt like too much, it makes sense why you were led to go closer to this line.
That
So I
makes
found
a
that very
ton of
fascinating.
sense. Yeah, it was pretty like not like right on the border of New Mexico and Arizona, but so far east.
Uh-huh.
So definitely east of the Chiron line, but
Yeah.
a little west of the ice Uranus line, I guess is what it's called,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So and that was like my happy place because you would go to the top of the peak and it would be so silent. Like you could hear like the silence was like deafening and you just felt like you're the only person in the world and it was just so peaceful. And like that was my place for my gosh, like 10, 15 years. And then I kind of migrated to Strawberry, which is closer to the Chiron line. And that's just
Yeah.
blowing my mind.
Yeah,
Wow.
and Chiron is so powerful, especially when you're doing the healing work, which I know you have been. It's when people are avoiding the work or running from the pain where it becomes like painful.
Hmm.
Have found a way to transmute your pain and your wounds, and you're taking that and helping it, like using it as fuel to get you closer to where you want to be. And then one last thing I just wanted to point out that was jumping out too, because I felt like something significant about your Jupiter line was coming up, and
Okay.
that's definitely closer to where you lived. Like that's your closest line to where you were born. So
Hmm.
this symbol right here will be your place of birth. And so Jupiter is like expansion, abundance, and all of that. And it's also over here, it's kind of cut off, but your Venus line too is like love and doing what you love and nurturing and all of that. So I found it
Wow.
interesting where you're born is between those two lines, where it's like this very nurturing, loving, expansive energy as well. So this is
Wow.
definitely a powerful tool, especially if you like to travel or if you're just like digging into different parts of your story. It's so fun to look at. Like I've lived in 8 different states, so I love going back and looking at where my lines are and what themes were coming up when I lived in those places or when I've traveled to certain places. And you can actually zoom out and look at the whole world too. And then up here, you can choose like if you want to look at aspects that are harmonious or disharmonious. So if you're choosing to travel to a place, just being like aware of what energies might come up. And if you're planning like a big move, this could be helpful as well. Just knowing like with your own blueprint on your birth chart and the map of Earth, what may or may not come up. And again, it's like anything in astrology or anything in life. It's like take what resonates and leave what doesn't. And it doesn't mean that this is like one size fits all. It's just like a fun guide. So,
That is so neat. Thank you so much for sharing that.
absolutely. Okay, one last thing before we move on. I just wanted to also point out, so this is on a different website where you can look at an aspect in your chart called the part of fortune. So this is like how I have experienced this is once you've done the work and done integration, you can activate like your authentic abundance and it's going to come through and like doing what is in alignment with you. So for you it may have been that move from corporate America to launching your own business was like definitely you getting into alignment. And then once we've done a lot of integration work, it's like opening up this next layer or like the Chiron being the key. It's like the key to unlock your abundance. So your part of fortune is a mathematical part on your chart using your sun, moon, and rising. And there's two different lines. So right here, it looks like if you were wanting to activate this part of your chart on Earth, this line would be a really good one to look at. And so it's going through, it looks like right through the Great Lakes and then like this whole part of the United States. So like definitely like parts of Florida, maybe like I feel like this is close to um like I used to go to Sarasota and it used to be really close to here. And so yeah, if you ever wanted to like travel or even like to Cuba, these parts would be activated, or these places would help you tap into that part of fortune, which is unlocking your authentic abundance in your chart. And then also this line right here. So mine is kind of similar to yours, where a lot of it is through the ocean, but then there's parts of Africa. Like I could see you going to like the pyramids and having a really good experience, or just like these parts of Russia, maybe if you feel drawn to anywhere on this line, there's probably a reason for that. And then there's also this line over here. So it looks like it's through China and even like close to Bali is over like near here too. So those are like places that I feel led to share with you if you were ever wanting to activate like more luck and abundance and prosperity. So that's definitely something to dive into as well.
I love that. Thank you.
Of course.
So when I was getting trained in NLP, one of the first coaches I met, I really was just kind of drawn to her. She gave me just the biggest hug, and her name was Vanessa, and she's amazing. And she does retreats in Bali, and she lives in Australia, so she's right in that area. And the whole company is based out of Australia, which is literally like right next door. So that's kind of
Yeah.
crazy to see that, because those being around those people are, the reason why I've really propelled myself into this. So that makes a ton of sense.
Amazing. I love that so much. Thank you for sharing. Read your application to be on the podcast. I was like, that is such a cool name. Like Luna, do you pronounce it as Luna Marie? Or Luna?
Lunamari, my middle name's Marie, so
Okay,
so
same.
Lunamari.
Yeah.
Oh my God, no way.
Do you
Ugh,
know the meaning of Marie?
no,
It
I don't think I've
means
ever heard
star
that.
of the sea. And like for me, I think of like sea like emotions as well.
But Mari is sea, and that's why I have Mari, and Luna is moon. And I
Yeah.
love I'm like obsessed with the moon since I'm a little kid. My mom was like, she said I would look up at the sky and be like, Mommy, look, there's a yone. I called it a yone. I don't know why. I
Oh,
couldn't say moon, or I had my own language apparently.
I love
And yeah, so I was like, okay, I want a new name. Like I'm reinventing myself. I don't want to be my old name. I definitely don't want to be my ex's last name, like for sure.
right.
And like I mean, I've been this name for, I think it'll be like a year this month, and
Okay.
it sounds so cool, and like it feels more normal now, but it still kind of feels like different. I don't know. It's like because it came from nowhere. Like
Yeah,
I
it
don't
came
know.
from you,
It came
not
from
nowhere.
me.
You
That's right. You're right.
created
You're
it.
right. Yeah, no, but like, oh my God, I had my first psychedelic experience in September. I first time ever, and it
Oh my
was
gosh.
insane. If
Yeah.
you saw what I wrote like I don't even know, 20 pages of just randomness. I sat
Yeah.
in a hot tub staring at the sky and just started like writing. I love writing and like it was so many profound things. Like I haven't
Yeah.
even reread it like
Oh my
sober or not.
gosh.
I guess you're not really like I don't know, whatever you are when you're on
Yeah.
psychedelics, but it was actually the weekend before I said, like, screw it, I'm going all in on the business. So it was
That
really,
is so powerful. Okay. Which psychedelic did you do? Was it mushrooms or ayahuasca?
yeah, mushrooms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel so drawn to work with psychedelics, especially mushrooms. I like went on a journey too, and then that's when I quit teaching after 8 years. I just like I could not go back. Like the first day
You
I went
used to
back,
teach? Did we talk about that?
I don't think so,
Because I
but
used to teach kids
okay.
with autism, so that's crazy.
Okay. And
Yes,
psilocybin takes you right into
right
your
into it. Like
and
right in.
can't run from it. Like you're gonna have to
Yes.
like cry it out or shake it out or transmute it in some way because it's
Yes.
like you're in the thick of it. But then it's so beautiful because it's like coaching you and guiding you and like this nurturing mom,
Yes.
like holding you through the pain as you like process all this stuff. And then
Oh yeah.
yeah, it like it's
It
amazing.
was so cool. Like it was just, I was so scared. I'm like, oh my God, like am I gonna be out of control? And my boyfriend's like, no, like you're gonna be fine. And I remember just being like, I feel wavy. I was like, I feel wavy. Like
In
that was like the
flow.
intro. And
Yeah.
then, but I'm like, oh, I'm totally in control. Like I was able to get in and out of a hot tub, so that was good.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Amazing.
oh my God, I so want to schedule and
Okay.
talk about that because I
Yeah.
have not like there's so many firsts I'm doing with you that I've never spoken like publicly or out loud about. And I'm like, I don't give a fuck anymore. So
Yeah. Same. For you to also be able to hold that space for others and guide them to empowering themselves is so beautiful. I feel like that's what makes such a powerful coach is you're not giving them the answers, you're just guiding them to their answer center or their power center and like guiding them to go within. And that's such a powerful, beautiful gift. You said all of that so beautifully. Did you also know Sedona is like a spiritual
yes.
vortex and you're so close to it? Have you been there and like have you had any experiences where you felt that vortex energy?
Yeah, I went there actually in 22 and it was cold out. So I remember there's a picture of me and it's such an interesting picture because I'm kind of just like staring off into like the distance and it's just the back of my head. And every time I see that picture, it kind of screams to me like you're looking for something that
Ooh.
you know you want, that you know is there, but you're not grasping at it yet. You're not quite, you're not quite there yet, but you will get there. And it's, it's not like a cool picture or anything, but it was the Airport Mesa Vortex specifically in Sedona. And there is such a neat energy there. I love it there. It's very powerful. And then just kind of sitting up there, I brought all my crystals with me. I had them like all like laid out. I was like, okay, time to charge them.
That's beautiful. And I love what you were saying about like what was coming through when you saw that picture. I don't know if you're familiar with Rebecca Campbell, Work Your Light Oracle, and I had pulled a card before our call just to kind of like set an
Yeah.
intention. And it was, I don't know if I'm saying this right, but it's Imrama, Imrama, and it's basically a soul journey. And the question she asks is, where are you being called to journey to? I feel led to ask that question on your soul journey right now. Where are you being called to journey to right now?
Oh my goodness. Wow. I mean, I've been thinking about this so much lately. It's hard to kind of see the long term, when you're at such a kind of beginning phase of something you've just started, to kind of embark upon. But like big picture, I've always loved motivational speaking, hence, the TED Talk kind of stage and just being able to reach a broad audience to help people kind of, like I said, see like you have the choice to choose. Like you can empower yourself and no matter how, crappy or terrible life gets, you actually can get out of it. You've got to get out of your own way. And a psychic told me that when my first trip up north to Strawberry, she's like, if you don't get out of your own way, it's not going to end well. And I remember like looking at her like terrified a little bit, knowing exactly what she meant. But I didn't want to go there. I didn't want to look at internal yet, and I didn't want to accept what I already knew would happen. And, she was 100%, on point. She's like, you've got to get out of your own way. And that's precisely, what I was doing on my journey, is doing that. And then you're always evolving, right? So you're continuing to do that. And every day I work towards that. So, I mean, I would love to be able to, reach a broad audience, help people, give them tools, things that they can just kind of, pull out of their pocket anytime, anywhere, so that they can kind of get unstuck, in the moment.
Absolutely. And I love how you said get out of your own way, because I don't know about you, but early on my journey, I was so deep into victim mindset where I had been
Yes.
blaming everyone and everything. And then I also went through a divorce. It was in 2020. That was when I first realized, okay, everything I had been blaming on my ex-husband is still a pattern in my life. So obviously there's something going on here. And it was things I had been blaming on my parents from early childhood. And so through NLP, I learned to also reframe my limiting beliefs and take back control and be like, okay, you're going to take radical responsibility. There's no one else to blame except you. And then like being able to actually take action on that is so difficult sometimes. And it's like
Yes.
when it's like so frustrating when you realize that you're the only one who's been in your way the whole time. It's like, what the heck? Like, get it with it. Like, we're on the same team. I feel like it's this balancing act of getting our like ego and our higher self and inner child all on the same page. If there's someone else out there who is stuck in their own way right now, they're realizing, I'm feeling stuck. I feel like I'm the only one standing in between where I am now and where I want to go. What would you tell them? Like, what would your advice be to them?
I'm a big believer in journaling and self-reflection and kind of just opening a blank page and asking yourself some questions, right? I love using, from NLP, I love using the meta model questions, things like, okay, for example, if you want to action on something, but you're kind of hesitant, you're like, oh, I don't know. I love the question, what prevents you? I mean, every time I ask a client that, it kind of blows their mind. What prevents you? Or what would happen if you did? What would happen if you didn't? And my favorite one is, what wouldn't happen if you didn't? Sounds like an oxymoron. When my life coach said this to me, I said, huh? And I had to literally like write it out and like try to sketch it because I couldn't even understand what she was asking me. And I can't remember exactly what it was, but the whole point is to kind of overload your critical faculty in your mind so that you can access your subconscious. So by doing that and kind of having all these, confusing words put together, it helps you kind of open, kind of let the conscious mind have like a little nap and then kind of open the subconscious. So I love using those questions and just asking yourself those things, right? Like, for example, if someone says, "Oh, it's bad if you do XYZ, but it's really like your passion or your dream," right? Or maybe it's just you telling yourself that. Asking yourself, "Well, who says it's bad? How do you know it's bad?" How, and if it's, for example, if you're stuck in victim mindset, right? Let's say, your partner or whatever is, causing you to feel a certain way, asking the question, well, how do I choose to suffer? I remember getting asked that and being like, oh, wow, that's powerful. How do I choose to suffer? Because I am the one who's choosing to suffer, essentially. So by asking some of those questions, it can help you just kind of get out of your own head, essentially, open your mind a little bit and kind of have a framework to work through so that you can, come to your own conclusions on your own. And it also helps to kind of get it out of your head and on paper, because then the cycle of the repetitive, nature of those, negative thoughts can actually stop and halt. So I love those questions, and I think that those are helpful.
Definitely. And I absolutely love journaling as well. I feel like sometimes when I do start with journaling, it does help me get things flowing. And sometimes I still get stuck in the overthinking. And I know you have other somatic practices that you've shared with me and ways to get people embodied and like more into their body and out of their head. So let's say you had someone start with journaling and that worked for a little bit, but then they feel themselves getting stuck again in their head. What somatic or embodiment practices do you use with clients and what would you recommend? as a next step?
Yeah, no, great question. I love using kinesthetic pattern interruption, right? And what that is if you're, let's say, you're at work or you're doing something, or maybe you're just journaling and you're frustrated with yourself or whatever the case is, and you feel like, okay, this isn't really getting me anywhere, or maybe it's, upsetting me more. Sometimes we just think, okay, just push through, just power through. And sometimes that's a good thing. But sometimes it's not a good thing, especially if you're already in a negative headspace, you're just kind of perpetuating it. So I love doing kinesthetic pattern interruptions. So that could be anything from, just getting up, doing a quick 5-minute yoga sequence. Actually, I did this today because I was grumpy about something about PayPal. And I'm like, okay, I need to break this pat. Yeah. Long story. But anyway, so I'm like, I gotta break out of this mindset. This is not okay. Like, I don't like how I feel right now. So I got up, I did my yoga stretch. I do gratitude every morning. That's huge. If I'm stuck on something where like something's not going my way, I make it a point to write down as many little things, like micro things I can, things that I usually look over, right, that I'm grateful for, especially if it's something that has caused part of the problem. I love being able to look inward towards it, find that silver lining, and practice that as gratitude. I love just kind of getting up and doing like a very intentional mindfulness walk, right? So where there's no intention, you're just walking and you're just observing. Okay, well, what do I hear? What do I see? How does the wind feel on my skin? How does the sun feel? And just getting really grounded and present. My other favorite thing, and I haven't done this in the house that I moved into, and now I have to go outside and do it, but I had a patch of just dirt on the side of my old house. So I made like a giant crystal grid, and I would stand inside of it if I was needing to get grounded, or if I was just, stuck, or whatever the case was. And I would literally put a crystal grid, like a human size one together, and I would just stand in it. And just something around the practice of putting your feet into the ground and just being connected to the earth. And then you amplify that way with the power of crystals, can be another great way. But really, anything other than continuing to do what you do, just getting up and doing some kind of movement that, whatever aligns with you, is extremely helpful. And especially if you're blocked, because on that walk, on that nice, meditative walk, the answer, you will be surprised, but will oftentimes come to you like within, 2 minutes of being on that walk. So yeah, I love doing that. I practice that myself all the time, and it's been very helpful.
Thank you so much. Those are all amazing ways. I love all of those. And I know that there's other people who are going to hear this where they're like, okay, how do I work with this woman? So, how can people find you, and what specific services are you offering right now? Where can they connect with you and sign up?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is zenenergyden.com. And that was so I call it the Zen Den, where I see people in person, or even if it's just via Zoom. So I work with people from all over the US, East Coast, West Coast. I do actually work with most people via Zoom, so location isn't an issue. And I do everything. I do hypno coaching, which is a new modality I put together that blends timeline, hypnotherapy, and coaching kind of into one. It's very customized, yet structured, yet flexible. I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but it isn't. Very specific, to the person and what they're looking to achieve. I also do just, traditional hypnotherapy, traditional NLP life coaching, Reiki, energy healing, and all that. I'm also on Instagram. Or at Evolvement Coaching is my Instagram handle. And that's the one I probably use the most for social media. And then TikTok is Evolvement CC, I believe, is my handle. I'm trying to embrace the TikTok world now. So I'm learning.
Yes, same. I just recently started on TikTok, and it's like learning a whole another thing, but it's actually a lot easier than I thought. And I feel like Instagram lately, I don't know about you, but the engagement has gone like so wonky over the past year.
Yeah.
And so that's why
Yes.
I'm so grateful that you and I connected through Threads and TikTok. And I
Hmm.
feel like if there's other people out there who you're using Instagram or a certain platform and you're not getting the results, like exploring other horizons like TikTok or Threads or YouTube or podcasts, just because there's so many people with these potent messages to share. And I know eventually you're going to be on stage sharing your story and your message. And so if you were to get on stage today, let's just imagine you were standing on top of a mountain and the whole world was listening to what you had to say. What would be your message that you would share with the world today?
Oh my gosh, that is such a hard question to answer. I have a database of probably 200 ideas of things I want to talk about. So let's see.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to kind of take a breath and look within and see like, okay, what comes up intuitively. That'll be my first thing.
Like one liner,
Yeah,
only say one sentence to the whole world. And yeah, take
one
time, like
sentence.
sit with it for a second.
Okay, I got it. I got it. It just came to me. It'll be two sentences though. Don't
That's a,
procrastinate your happiness and empowerment over enablement in terms of you and how you relate to other people, especially a romantic partner. Typically, yeah, those two would be my two liners, I guess you could say, for getting up on that stage and talking about that and why it's important and how we oftentimes do that. We procrastinate our own happiness.
yeah, I love that. And it's like that one question, the journaling question, like I think it was what wouldn't happen if you didn't. Was that it? Did I say that right?
Yes, yes.
That's so powerful. I want to also talk about, so on your application, I had asked about a title, if you had a book or a movie written about your personal transformation. And I'm going to let you share your title and go into that too. Like, how did you, so with your title, and then with that question, like, what would happen if you didn't? And anything you want to share with those two, like the title.
Yeah, absolutely. So the title would be, well, I mean, I've planned on doing this. I actually started writing a book and then life got crazy when I got divorced. And I also said, I'm like, I don't know how this story is going to end. So I paused everything at that point. And that was about roughly like a year and a half-ish ago. But it would be The Dark Night of the Awakened Soul. And the purpose or reason behind that title is that if you're familiar with screenwriting or story writing or just writing in general, like oftentimes in certain stories, there's always a dark night of the soul moment, is what they call. So, like the characters having a breakdown or they're having a moment or they kind of hit, that bottom point. They call it the dark night of the soul. And at the time, I was wanting to do a documentary on that artist I mentioned in the beginning, the one that kind of propelled me into this journey.
Mhm.
And so I'm learning about screenwriting and writing and all these things and just that phrase resonated with me, the dark night of the soul. But I wanted to put awakened in there because in my case, yes, it was dark, but it helped me become awake. And I look at it now as a transformation kind of from the darkness, out of the darkness into the light. So that's kind of the reason behind that title. Yeah, I will finish it. Absolutely. And then you asked me the question around like what wouldn't happen if I didn't. So my goodness, I have to think about that because that's the one that trips me up. So what wouldn't happen if I didn't? I wouldn't feel fulfilled. Like I
Yeah,
just wouldn't be fulfilled in life, period, if I wasn't doing what I'm doing finally right now. I wouldn't feel fulfilled. I wouldn't feel empowered. I would be stuck, very stuck, and I would be very much still sleepwalking.
absolutely. And also, you are already writing your story right now, even if you're not
Hmm.
actually writing it down. And it's like you experiencing life and listening to those soul whispers and taking those steps and investing in yourself and believing in yourself and building ways to help other people. That's all part of your story too. And I feel like our journey is like this never ending story. And so it's like accepting where we are in our journey and accepting that there's not going to be like an end point or a finish line too. And so it's like
Yes.
allowing it to unfold and then allowing like a new episode or a new chapter to evolve or a new message or a new episode to come out. And I feel like so many people are like, and myself included, when writing a book or wanting to launch something, they're afraid to take the first step because they don't know the whole map or how it's going to play out. And it like tying back into that unknown and taking that leap of faith and trusting that it's going to unfold as it's meant to, it's going to bloom when it's ready, and that one ending point is just a new beginning point as well. It's like you leaving corporate America was the end of that chapter, and then it opened up this beautiful new chapter. Or just like your relationship with your ex-husband, it was like the close of that is opening up space for a new relationship that's more in alignment to come in, or even focusing on your relationship with yourself, which you got a chance to love yourself and accept it yourself and be with yourself. And that's such a beautiful gift that so many people are afraid to give themselves because they're afraid to be alone with themselves. And it sounds like through your journey of going through that cocoon, you really got to decide and declare who you are and strip away what was not true to you and letting that go without attachment, and then opening up space for new aligned opportunities to come in and new clients to come in and a new relationship to come in. And I'm just so excited for you. It sounds like you're on your destiny path and you are getting into alignment day by day. The more you're saying yes to yourself and trusting that everything that's happening is happening for you. And it's so beautiful that you also get to help other people on their journey as you're writing your story, and then getting to be this pivotal part of their story as well, and helping them to get into alignment and writing a story that they're proud of and that does feel fulfilling. And
Oh
so, yeah,
gosh, you have such a way with words. Beautiful.
is there anything you want to share before we wrap up our episode today?
Actually, I was just going to mention it's nothing, super profound, but luckily, because I am such an avid journaler, if that's even a word, I journaled I mean, gosh, I would go through a journal a week for a long time to the point where I had to convert to electronic journaling where I could still write like on an iPad to feel like I'm writing, but still journaling. So I literally have every single element of the journey captured. I have screenshots of motivational quotes that had saved, or like signs I saw on the road. Like I'm driving and I'm thinking about something, and then poof, my eyes are drawn to look, and it's like a sign on the highway was like, you belong here. And I was literally thinking about what's my purpose. I don't know what it is. And then poof. So I have all of these things documented, which is going to be essentially, kind of the basis, right, of the book. And what I love about that is that I don't have to think too hard about kind of, okay, well, what was I doing then or on that day? I actually have like the raw, genuine moments, and I intend on sharing a lot of those things too, because I think authenticity and being genuine and vulnerable is a beautiful thing. And I think a lot of people maybe shy away from it, right? In fear of
Mhm.
judgment and all the other fears. But yeah, I mean, so capture everything, capture the good, capture the bad. There's nothing better than being able to connect the dots from a terrible or what was perceived as a terrible experience to kind of where that terrible experience brought you. Like, had X, Y, and Z not happened, it wouldn't have brought you here. So really having that kind of data to look back on and appreciate, I think is very powerful.
I love that so much. And I did the same thing on my journey too. And it's so awesome being able to have a documentation of those synchronicities as well. And I feel like when things like that happen, like how you were thinking something and then saw it on the sign, it's like these like hugs from the universe, like, hey, I've got
Yes.
you, like you're exactly where you need to be right now. This is all happening for you. This is all happening for a reason. To be able to look back too at the growth that you've made and to see like patterns that happen. Like I feel like we go through these cycles where we're in like a growth phase, and then it's more of like a contraction and going within phase, and then we expand again. And to be able to like look back at other periods and reminding yourself like, okay, this is just a phase I'm in, this is just a cycle, this is going to pass, this is all part of my journey. And I think it's so powerful and beautiful that you have that as documentation as well. And also with the story too, it's like what you're doing day to day and the documentation, that's all part of writing your story too. It's not like
Yes.
this like cookie cutter way of doing it where you have to actually physically be writing it. And it's like you living and embodying your truth in a way that feels in alignment for you, or even if it's out of alignment at the time, it's all happening the way it needs to. And it's like those parts that sometimes we don't want to share with others as much are just as important as our success. There's actually, here, I want to look at it. I lost it, but there was a tea message. I don't know where it went, but it was talking about like celebrating your failures as much as you celebrate your successes, because it's all part of the process. And we
I love
wouldn't be
that.
where we are today if we hadn't been through the dark night of the soul, or like if we hadn't had been asleep, we wouldn't know how good it feels and how fulfilling it feels to wake up to who we are.
Yeah.
And so it's like by having that duality and polarity, helps us to lead to more unity and integration, because then we're able to like see it from all these different perspectives and angles. It's like a kaleidoscope where you get to like see the multifaceted parts of you and the parts of your journey, and being able to appreciate it, because usually it's those dark times that lead to our strength. And so the more we can also celebrate how far we've come is going to help us have that momentum and that courage to keep going on our journey, knowing that we've always made it through the darkest times, and it's always darkest right before it gets light again. It's like that saying, it's always darkest before the dawn. And so it's like anchoring in that hope in the dark times. And it's so important to have someone like a coach during those times when people feel like they're alone and they can't do it on their own. And it's like having someone to be in the ring with them, like, you're not in this fight alone, like, I've got you, you're gonna make it through. And then being able to like for you to guide them back home to themselves is making massive waves of change. And I'm so excited to see where your story evolves. And it's also knowing that like each day you don't have to have like the whole thing finished. It's like even just 1%, whatever you're doing each day, as long as you're getting like closer and closer, even by 1%, that's going to completely change the trajectory and get you closer to where you want to be.
Well said. Oh my gosh, you're so right. I'm a big believer in micro steps, right? And it just helps you feel like, okay, I'm getting somewhere, I'm doing something. It doesn't have to be a whole to do. So, very well said.
Thank you. And everything you said too is so in alignment with what I'm hoping people will gain from listening into this, is wanting them to know the importance of self-discovery and spiritual alchemy, and being able to dive into their shadows and find the light through that, and then finding those embodiment practices and finding those mindset reframes to move through where they feel stuck and get into a place from limiting beliefs to more empowering beliefs, because our mind is so powerful. And I love being able to connect with you and hear more of your story. And I'm learning so much from you, and I know other people are as well. So if you have made it to this point, make sure you go check out Danielle's website, go check out her page, follow her. And if you feel led to reach out with her, she seems like this vault or this vortex of spiritual wealth to help you invest in yourself and get closer to making your dreams into your reality. Thank you so much, Danielle, for joining me today. And I am eternally grateful that we connected.
Me too, Tiffany. Thank you so much. I've it's my first time doing this and sharing to the level I did out loud. So, thank you for holding that space for me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.